Texans make one of the biggest splashes of the offseason. Now people are calling them a Super Bowl contender. Are they contenders? 5 thoughts on the trade for Stefon Diggs in the locker room.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the locker room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey. Locker room. Yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk. Yeah, you know what we about to do.
Wild day. We asked the question, what is Nick Caserio doing? Why are they trading their first-round pick for a second-rounder this year and a second-rounder next year? Why are they clearing up cap space? What are the Texans up to? Are they trying to figure something out? Is it something that we don't see coming? And I'll be dang today. It is the locker room, by the way, #1 source for Texans daily digital content. I'm Landry Locker. You can hear me Monday through Friday, 10 to 2 Central, Sports Radio 610 in the Odyssey app, and see it right here on YouTube. Walking into the studio today and had a producer of another show, Tyler Milner, come up to me at 9:56 right before I'm about to go on the air and says, hey, the Texans just traded for Stefon Diggs. I said, I'll be damned. Open up the phone, bada bing, bada boom. Adam Schefter broke the news, and then Diana Rossini sounded out the compensation. Texans send a second in 2025. So the second-round pick that they received from the Minnesota Vikings, the extra one, they send that to Buffalo. They receive Diggs in a 2025 fifth and a 2025 sixth. So essentially what the Texans did, if you just combine the Minnesota trade with this, is they basically had a pick swap, a 1 and a 2, and they received a 2, Stefon Diggs, a 5th, a 6th, and a 7th. That's not bad. I've been, kind of hesitant to be open to trading Stefon Diggs, but I think based on what you gave up and based on what the value was, I don't even know that it's a high risk move. You still have full draft equity this year. The draft's not impacted at all, though you don't need a receiver as much. You still have a full draft next year. You have 1st through 7th next year, and you get a receiver who has been one of the more productive guys in the NFL the last few years. You can talk about last season, and this was a stat that was thrown at me this morning. He had 5 100-yard receiving games in the first 6 weeks and 0 games over 90 after week 6. Okay. He still had over 100 catches, 8 touchdowns, and surpassed 1,000 yards. So the fact that you're not giving much up for him is wild. And the craziest thing for me is I just remember where I was, and I was in that same studio when DeAndre Hopkins was traded, and you find out about the trade, you anticipate more than you get, then you don't get it, then all hell breaks loose. This was kind of the opposite feeling, and I think it's a direct reflection of the Texans just kind of going 180. And oh, by the way, that same time, Stefon Diggs got traded to the Buffalo Bills. 5 thoughts on this, and we'll have the live stream. We do that every day at 10:30, but 5 quick thoughts. Thought 1, this is much needed offensive weaponry. They told you that they needed offensive weaponry. They tried to get Saquon. They tried to get Keenan Allen. They needed it. And they were kind of in no man's land. The free agent market had been dried up. Some of the names that you were hearing, T. Higgins, Brandon Ayuk, they were going to cost a lot of draft compensation. At that point in the draft, you didn't know that you were going to get guys, but you got Stefon Diggs, you have full draft compensation, and you're bringing in a guy who, yes, he was disgruntled in Buffalo, disgruntled in Minnesota. You're bringing in a guy that is apparently going to want to be here, and you have 2 guys who have performed like #1 receivers recently in stretches in Nico Collins and Tank Dell, and you're not relying on them. 2 guys that can't necessarily stay on the field. So you attacked one of your biggest needs, and you did so still heading into the draft with full array of picks and one less significant need than you previously had. So that's thought 1. Thought 2, a low risk cost, and thanks in part to the earlier trade. As I said, you made the trade with the Minnesota Vikings, and when you're giving up what the Texans are giving up and you have the extra chips that they had, and I think you go back to the Deshaun Watson trade where you have all these extra picks. So you feel comfortable in trading up for Will Anderson. You feel comfortable in, moving around a little bit. It all kind of goes back to the Deshaun Watson trade, but on top of Buffalo and all the drama that's been going on with Diggs and all the extra equity, the Texans, it's not like they gave up a second-round pick and they're not going to have one. They still have one. So that makes the cost even less because you have more to work with. It's like going to a casino with $500 in chips versus going to a casino with $200 in chips. Because of the extra draft equity, they had some extra chips, and it makes it a much more low risk move for Nick Caserio. Thought 3 is Diggs washed. This has been something that has been thrown out there. I mentioned the stats at the end of last year. There have been theories, though, that perhaps they changed the offensive coordinator. Offensive coordinator didn't focus as much on him. So Stefon Diggs didn't get as much opportunity, and that kind of added to the frustration. So that could have had something to do with it. Is he washed? I think washed is a subjective term. You're not asking Stefon Diggs to come in here and carry your receiving core. You have Nico Collins, who a lot of people feel really good about. You have Tank Dell, who had a good rookie season. He's looking to bounce back from an injury. You have CJ Stroud. You have Joe Mixon. You've done some work on defense. So it's really kind of a subjective thing. Like a washed Stefon Diggs, if he's washed and he has 107 catches and 8 touchdowns, sign me up for that. And again, you're not relying as much on him, and the cost wasn't as much. So is he washed? That was kind of one of the main texts that we got, like as far as pushback. We'll see. You also, by the way, and this is kind of a bonus, thought you negatively impacted Buffalo. Say what you want. I'm sure they're going to be in the wide receiver market at 20, but you're in pretty good shape there. Thought 4, Caserio's aggressiveness. I like Caserio's aggressiveness because it's not reckless. I mentioned the DeAndre Hopkins trade. The craziest thing about that DeAndre Hopkins trade for me, or one of the many things, was David Johnson was a backup plan. You originally offered Carlos Hyde a contract. He rejected it. So then you trade arguably your best player for David Johnson, a second-round pick. And it's just kind of it's kind of compulsive. It's reckless. And we saw many of those trades, and we've seen many of those trades. The amount of compensation that they gave up for Tunsil just because you were desperate. Caserio's aggressiveness is interesting because he doesn't mind waiting around and he doesn't mind adjusting. Tried to acquire Keenan Allen per multiple reports. Didn't happen. So then you go and get Stefon Diggs for what they got him for. Dalton Schultz last year. They didn't initially plan on going and getting Dalton Schultz, but the market spoke to Dalton Schultz, and the Texans decided that was the direction they were going to go. Last year at the draft, CJ Stroud, Will Anderson. Which one are we going to take? I'm sure the guys are huddled around talking about it. How about both? So you adjust and go do that. So Caserio's aggressiveness, I like it because it's not reckless, and I like it because even when he's being aggressive, there's still a little bit of conservative nature to it. And he kind of stays true to himself. The Danielle Hunter deal, it's a 2-year deal. The Stefon Diggs trade, you still have a full draft. You didn't sacrifice draft equity for it. So Caserio's aggressiveness, thought 4, he deserves some credit for that. Thought 5, the Texans look like a contender. That's kind of the popular dialogue right now. The Texans are a contender. The Texans the biggest threat to the Chiefs. I would say yes. Like it's this is, we got to also keep in mind they still have a full draft and they still have some other stuff that they can do. They just have to fill holes now. The Texans definitely look like a contender. Am I going to sit here and say Super Bowl or bust? No, but the Texans, they look like a threat to the Chiefs. And oh, by the way, Buffalo, come on down. You're moving down that pecking order. Exciting times to say the very least. Texans acquire Stefon Diggs. We'll talk about it on the stream. Be sure to tune in to In the Loop Sports Radio 610. Tune into the locker room. We got some fun stuff coming ahead. A lot of big time entertainment coming your way. Be sure to subscribe, like, right along. Best Texans coverage in the country. And always remember, when it comes to the Texans, We're all in it together. Appreciate you.
Localize every angle's what we really do. We the source, we the pulse of the city too. Landlocked, got the game in the headlock. Localize every